Today's episode of Heads and Tails is recorded with Jane Lunnon, who's the head of Alleyn School, and what an episode. She is one of the loveliest and most eloquent people I've had on this podcast to date. We cover her advice on don't look down. We talk about wouldn't it be fun as a mantra for teachers and senior leaders in schools, all the way through to controversial topics like polarised debate online, and we cover what democracy really needs and holding the centre ground. She even tells us that she thinks there's not enough dancing out there. The AIQ, exciting things for Alleyn's, the wider group and the mergers taking place. It's a really great conversation and we hope you enjoy. Okay, welcome back to Heads and Tails with me, Henry Faber. I'm one of the co-founders at Oppidan, and it's a real privilege and long awaited this to have the chance to have a chat with Jane Lunnon. How are you, Jane?
I'm really good. Thank you, Henry. Great to be here.
I could hit you with a bio of Jane's career that would shock and awe, but I've had to trim it right down, and it's still pretty lengthy because there are so many interesting things that Jane has been up to. So Jane became the first female head of Alleyn School back in 2021, following leadership roles at Wimbledon High and Wellington. She's known for championing academic success alongside this much more important rounded curriculum, I think, as demonstrated with achievements like the AIQ program, which was designed with input from MIT. Jane recently announced the expansion of Alleyn School Group and is on boards for organisations very broad-ranging, from Royal Springboard, Dulwich Picture Gallery, the Coalition for Youth Mental Health in Schools, which she founded, LAE Tottenham, King Edward's Whitley, and there are committees in various roles for GSA and HMC as well. She's authored 2 books, don't know how she's had the time, on independent education with Dr. David James, and to top it all off is married and a sibling to 2 other heads, the great Neil Lunnon of Tower House, one of the most lovely schools in the land, and Jenny Brown of City of London School for Girls, who is Jane's sister. I'm not sure really where to start on all that other than to say thank you for sharing all this time with us. So my first question is really, how on earth do you have time for all of those things?
Yeah, it's a good question. It's funny when you put it all in one spot, how crazy it all sounds. Yeah, I mean, time expands, doesn't it? I think you can make time when you love what you're doing, and honestly, that's the truth of it. And all the things that I am the luckiest person in the world to have the job I have. It is hopefully we'll come to that, but it is the biggest privilege ever, and to do that. Every day is a joy. And then on top of that, the other stuff, I only ever say yes to things that really I find intriguing or that I really care about or I'm really passionate about. And honestly, if you're passionate, you can do it, right? You make time for it. It works. So that's the answer. Sorry, that's it.
I'm a big believer in give something to a busy person, and you seem to be emblematic of that. So one of my broader general questions I often ask people is perhaps there's a career anecdote that tells us something about you and your style of leadership.
Yes.
Pick it from any point you like, but what would you be happy to tell a story about that's going to give us a sense of who you are in leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I might lean into when I was I was senior deputy head at Wellington College. So, and I was working for and with the great Anthony Seldon, and I do mean that he was the most inspiring and incredibly formative leader for me. But to say he is demanding is to understate it. I mean, we think I'm busy. Anyway, and I remember shortly after I'd started as his deputy, and one of the things that was my area of expertise or area of oversight was the arts provision in the school. And of course, what a joy that was. I absolutely love everything about the arts of every kind. Anyway, and I remember I'd been invited to go and see something at the Proms in the Albert Hall, and I remember sitting there and a week into working as Anthony's deputy, and I remember thinking, "Well, this is an amazing space," and thinking, "I wonder why, and I wonder if we could ever put on a show here." As and so, and what, of course, then what happens is like a flame to a touch paper. I then made the mistake of actually saying that to Anthony. He was like, "Do it, do it. We will put on a show at the Albert Hall, and we will fill the Albert Hall." And anyway, and so I then ended up I think literally in my first sort of 18 months as Anthony's deputy, literally writing, directing, pulling together this huge show at the Albert Hall to celebrate 150 years of the school. And it was, I mean, in the end, it was enormous fun to do. In the end, it was a huge success, and there were 300 people in the class, packed out. It was an incredible moment, which I will never ever forget as long as I am alive. Um, but I suppose it speaks to, if you had to say to me, what is the single, what if you had to sum up my leadership style? This is going to make me sound so perhaps not quite as professional as one would like, but it probably is this phrase, which my friends tease me about all the time. But it's this: wouldn't it be fun if dot dot dot? Wouldn't it be fun if? And on the whole, it's like, it's, in other words, yeah, let's do it. Let's just do it. We'll make this work, and we nearly always do.
Amazing. I feel like that can-do attitude probably underpins and props up all teachers and all schools.
Yeah,
And without it, you're probably in the wrong profession. So I think
yeah.
good, great to hear that from someone in your position. Perhaps there's a piece of advice that stuck with you or worked for you that you regularly give to others as well. We have a lot of teachers and educators of
Mm.
all different shapes and sizes who listen to this podcast. What would your advice for them be around something to shape their own career in education?
Yeah. Yeah, I thought quite hard about this. Other people have asked me that, and and my sometimes it varies, but broadly, I have two pieces, and both of them were given by to me by women who I love and admire, and always will. So the first was, well, you've already mentioned her actually, but my identical twin sister, who is also head of a school not far from here, and she said, just literally just before I started as head at Wimbledon High, which is where I was before, she said, "Don't look down." Don't look down. And that thing of, especially when you are starting in whatever role it is. I mean, whether that's obviously being a head is a huge thing. But I remember when when I became the first head of departments, female head of departments at Wellington, and I was only 26 or something, and I was so daunted by that. But whatever the responsibility is, keep focused on where you are going, and don't spend too much time thinking about the enormity of the responsibility you are carrying. And particularly if you are ahead, when you think about all of the stakeholders that you are serving, it can sometimes be paralyzing. So sometimes just keep your eyes on the goal, and don't let that other noise become too overwhelming. So that was first piece of advice, and then the second was from my mum, who sadly left us 4 years ago. But when she was alive, she used to say this all the time. It's such a great thing. If you want to grow wings, you must do the next things. And that is just about, again, do you know what? Sometimes just do what's in front of you. And again, don't think about the huge picture. You will get there if you have a plan, and you break it up. And we say that to
Amazing.
kids as well, don't we? I mean, that's just good message for life.
I love that we've had those bits of advice from both sister and mother. I think there's
Yeah.
something really special about that. I very
Mm.
rarely locate advice from people I speak to in those terms. And I'm also already got this idea brewing of you and Jenny doing a joint podcast with me. So that could be
Oh,
something
yes, we'd love to.
to,
Yeah.
I think that has real spice and flavor to it. Um, I guess along those lines, with that piece of advice of one step in front of the other, you're doing just that. The early part of the term, as we're speaking now, you have a huge year ahead of you. You have an in-tray that I'm sure is loaded up and rarely feels like it empties. What's one thing in that in-tray that you're really excited or feeling challenged by that you'd be happy to talk into a
Oh,
bit?
crikey. Well, I'm excited by almost everything in the in tray, honestly, and I'd love to talk about loads of things. I guess the really big thing for us this year is the expansion of the Alleyn's school group, which is an amazing opportunity that's come from our partnership with Cognita. And so we just opened a prep school in Regent's Park, Alleyn's Regent's Park, and next year we'll be opening Alleyn's Hampstead. So that's super exciting. And alongside that, we've also just taken over a prep school just down the road from us as well, and that's Alleyn's Oakfield, and that's become part of the Alleyn School Group. So I guess for me, the really exciting challenge in all of that, and absolute priority, is to make sure that we are delivering on all the things that make a great Alleyn's education in those spaces, but absolutely ensuring that the excellence and all the wonderful things that we do here on the ground we still continue to do and do them really, really well. So when any school moves from being a school to a group of schools, just making sure that you are absolutely eyes on delivery in the center, in the heart of it, because that's where it all comes from. So that's the really, it's a challenge, but it's super exciting.
It's super exciting. And I think as a brand, such a strong one, there's something so clear about it being Alleyn's in the south and then Alleyn's suddenly now in the north. Has
Yeah.
there been an interesting challenge to that geographically, or have there been road bumps to suddenly being on the other side of the city versus where you were, rather than
Well,
somewhere, local to you?
I mean, the thing is, well, I was born in North London, so I am at heart. You can't, you can take the girl out of North London, but so but it is interesting. Of course, it's really interesting because the fact is, actually, Southeast London and North London are very different. It's really interesting. The whole thing. Obviously, London is a relatively contained and geographically quite small city, but the difference in approach and tone and um, uh, you know uh, feeling actually in those spaces is quite marked, and I think that's been interesting. The truth is, because we found a partner that shares our values, which is really, really important, um, and because we have done so much work to ensure that um, that what we value about Alleyn's could transfer and could and we would be able to make that transition work. And because we've got a wonderful member of staff as well who's working as a deputy in that space in Regent's Park. All of those things I think really help to to ease that transition and to perhaps bridge some of the cultural divides, if as it were.
I suppose as part of this kind of trend of schools taking on other schools, I can't really ignore, or we can't collectively ignore, the context, which is quite a difficult moment for independent education in general. And whether it's London or boarding day, international everywhere, it's a tricky time where impact is really important. What are your reflections on the moment we're in now, and I suppose the opportunities from it? Because clearly you're doing something really exciting with the group, so it probably feels like a really positive moment, but amid other difficulties too. So I'd love to hear your reflections just on where you sit on that wider
Yeah, I
debate.
mean, well, you're right. I mean, you are absolutely right. It is probably it is, I think, the most dynamic time that for independent education that I have known in a 30-year career in independent education. It is both in terms of challenge and opportunity. It's all happening. It is all happening in the sector. Um, and I mean, we are very, very fortunate. We recognise that we're incredibly lucky. I think to be a highly selective day school in a wonderful part of London with a still really robust market with a wonderful offer with all the resources that we have. We know how we recognise that is not the position that everyone is in, and all I can say is it means we are the very opposite of complacent. It really has focused the mind on what are we doing, what are we doing well, how can we improve, always. And so I think, so firstly, I think, yes, it's hard for everyone, and challenge and change always is. Secondly, though, as with all change and when things, when contexts become more fluid, there are opportunities, and I think that, of course, being putting yourself in a position where you can make the most of those opportunities, that is wonderful to be able to do that. Um, and hopefully the opportunities in the end are good for, they're good for education. Like everything we've done has been, first and foremost, how will this strengthen education, both for the kids that we already work for and the kids that we will be working for in the future. So there definitely are real opportunities that come with it. Um, but above all, I think what challenge and a changing marketplace does is it really, and to be honest, I'm restlessly critical anyway, as my, I hope always joyfully so and supportively so. But I that is definitely part of my leadership style, is to think, how could we have done that better? But I do think we are, as a sector, having to take that approach. How can we be even better? I've always been incredibly proud of what independent education offers in this country. I think it's hugely valuable and really, really, we should really look after this part of education in the country. I think having that, independence is a valuable thing in and of itself. So I've always thought it's a real strength and a real asset for the UK. But I think our current times mean that everybody is thinking, well, how can we make it even better? How can we do what we do, serve our communities even more strongly? And that is obviously just a good thing, right?
A really lovely part of independent and maintained sector work that's happened in the past decade plus has been things like improving Royal Springboard and the work with LAE and all this amazing partnerships work, which I know Alleyn's is very strong on, and you've clearly in a personal capacity too been really involved in. Have you noticed any knock-on effects from the kind of negative environment the independent sector is going into, or I suppose, what are your hopes for that kind of partnerships work as a result of where we are now?
Oh gosh, I mean, I'm so glad you asked me that, Henry. I feel so strongly about this. And again, I do recognise, I absolutely see budgetary pressures. It's very, very difficult for schools, and of course, schools rightly have absolutely thinking about every penny that they spend, and they must do that because it's still the bulk of the money is parent fee income, and that matters, really, really matters. But so does partnership, outreach, engagement. That is so important. I mean, it's important educationally, but it's important in terms of the way the educational landscape is changing and is likely to change in the years ahead. I think if independent schools pull up the drawbridge and say, okay, well, enough. It's just now got to hunker down. That's all we're doing. I really think that is where disaster lies ultimately. We learn so much. Education is about connection and learning from each other, and we learn so much from the work that we do with our partner schools. And we have we have a massive partnership program, and we learn so much as professionals. Our kids learn even more, kids working together. If it's a proper partnership, this is not about kind of, charity or anything like that, or it's crumbs from a table. It's absolutely about truly impactful, engaging collaboration, and really interesting educational connection with, schools across London and indeed across the world, actually, because we also have international partnerships. So, we have to do that. We really must double down. And for me, bursaries, which is one part of it, and then partnership work, which is another. That is the 21st century articulation of Edward Alleyn's mission in this school, and we don't want to lose that.
Innovation for the purpose of the benefit of both groups of students. I feel like that's a really important part of it. Thank you. That's been beautifully expressed and is a very important piece of the puzzle for me too. So I'm glad we've covered that. From one, I suppose, mention of controversial or controversy to another, I get to ask you about something controversial. This is always kind of a fun thing.
Okay.
We had the head of the National Teachers Union who said that her most controversial opinion was that humans were too nice to dogs and animals, that they treated animals more importantly than humans. I often refer to it, just to let you know that this doesn't have to be some high and mighty educational
Oh
concept.
gosh.
I would like to hear what you think is a controversial opinion that people would disagree with you for.
I mean, I'd love to say that Strictly Come Dancing is a really important show. It's really important, and it should be at the heart of every educational experience. But probably that
Is
is
that
too
a bit of a
controversial.
dream? Is that a dream to be on that show? Is
Yeah,
that
I once did go. In fact, twice I went to watch it. I love it so much that I actually once in a previous life set up basically a Strictly in my school, and got all a number of teachers were part of it, and the BBC came and filmed it in the end, and we all learnt to dance, and
oh
my
wow.
husband and I ended up doing a crazy Latin dance to La Vida Loca. And anyway, and honestly, actually, joking apart, dance. It's not controversial, but we don't talk enough about it. There is not enough. The dance here is unbelievable, and we have 300 kids perform twice a year. Different kids perform in 2 shows a year, and they love it. And we don't do enough dancing. That's my controversy. As a nation, We don't dance enough. We need to be out on the streets dancing. It needs to be at the heart of every educational experience, and that's what I think. Yeah, but I
I
didn't
think
know I
that's
was going to
lovely.
go there.
No, that's
I actually
great.
have a slightly more serious thing I want to say about, which is also controversial, but I think it's really important. Can I say this?
Please, please do.
It's not so fun. It's certainly not about dogs or dancing, but this is so. Is this controversial? I don't know. I am really worried about the polarization of debate online, of the world that our kids are growing up in. They live online. Of course, this is Gen Alpha. It's totally native for them. But online discussion is generally polarized. It's you're either here or you're there. And I genuinely think that kids feel they need to take a position in one space or the other on either extreme. And I really think, I mean, it's one thing that we're starting to talk about a lot here, but I think more broadly in education, democracy depends on the center holding, the center ground holding. And I really think we need to be reclaiming the center for our kids and getting them to be comfortable with, do you know what? I am neither here nor here. I am in the middle and I am listening to both things and we'll see where we go. And I just think, and that needs to happen actually also in national discourse, in political discourse, we need to stop being so uh, absolute maybe in our positions and really try to make a case for that kind of judicious, more considered, I'm here in the middle, let's see. And I just think we it's a very difficult thing to sell. Even as I'm saying it, I'm thinking I'm not selling that,
No,
but
you've.
we need it because otherwise democracy will fail.
Thank you. That's wonderful. I feel you've hit me with that in the sense that I've been stuck in the middle most of my life and often think in a bad way, like, why have I not found myself in one extreme or the other? But I think there is a benefit to that in lots of ways. And I take your point. I went to see Rosamund Pike at the National Theatre a couple of nights ago, delivering a really incredible performance that touches on some of this. And I think there's so many interesting cultural points for our children and teenagers to engage with, to notice some of that center ground. So I think that's really interesting. I'm also going back to the dancing, really delighted to hear that you and Neil have something other to talk about than independent education. Because I think I said to you once at a conference, how do you and Neil ever A, see each other, or B, what do you talk about? And you said, maybe that's the secret to a happy marriage.
Well, oh, there we are. That is the light. 29 years, still very happily married. It is. It's great. We have such a nice time in the holidays. But no, yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't want people to think that we're just really like saddos who just talk about year 9 when we are, in bed, whatever. Like we do have, look, we do loads of fun things, and that's about living in London as well. My God, we are so lucky. So you went to see Rosamund Pike, very jealous of that. But last weekend we saw Operation Mincemeat, which is just, by the way, just a huge plug for that. It's an amazing show, and it's so funny and it's brilliant. But how lucky we are. Oh my God, we've just got everything on our doorsteps, haven't we? So we have a lot of fun. We do manage to kind of find time for those things, even in the middle of a crazy term.
Knowing you both, I'm really not worried. And also, you wouldn't even be able to talk about year 9 because he's looking after year 8 and below.
Yeah,
so
good
you've
point.
got
Yeah,
all
yeah.
these different year groups to discuss. It'll be fine. I'm in awe of both of you and your sister too. Fantastic. We're nearly at the end of this great conversation. I just want to give you one final chance to talk a little bit about Alleyn's and the year you've got ahead. Clearly, you're working on this big project with all these other schools, but within your own school as well, probably a lot to think about. Anything else you'd like to leave us with as the school year starts, and otherwise, thank you so much for all the time and energy and so many eloquent thoughts shared so brilliantly with us.
Thank you, Henry. Yeah, well, just, I mean, the things that we are doing here that we are just, that are just wonderfully inspiring for us to be working on, and we hope also for our kids. So the AIQ, which you've already mentioned, that which we literally started it last year, we're now rolling that out to all our year groups. So my incredible staff, wonderful colleague called Dorcas, along with lots of people who are helping her, have devised these beautiful courses which are looking at how to create basically ethical AI citizens. So AIQ looks at IQ, traditional IQ, and then what happens when you put AI alongside that, and how do we create and enable in our kids a sense of agency and purpose in an AI world. That is, in a nutshell, that is what that course does. And how does having AI as an incredible tool at our fingertips, how is that changing and influencing the way we think? And what do we then need to do in response? So it's the most amazing course. We do it from 4-year-olds all the way up to 18, obviously age appropriate and so on. We're so excited about that, and that is developing. That literally is going to be a big thing this year. That's rolling out this year. And then the other thing is AEQ, which is our kind of proactive pastoral education piece. We've done loads of work on that. I've got a wonderful pastoral deputy called Gavin English, who's all over everything, and that is fundamentally looking at, again, in the context of right now and all of the things that are happening now, what do kids need to flourish, and how can we give them, again, that sense of agency so that they can really take control of that themselves. And that is super exciting too. So those are two things. I mean, actually a gazillion other things, but yeah.
No, both
I'll
so
do for now.
exciting. And on the AIQ point, I mean, can you roll it out for adults? Surely the parents are queuing up for it. I would have thought this would be something we would all want.
Watch this
Yeah.
space. I mean, there's a whole thing I need to say about futures as well, and what's happening in the workplace, and what does that mean for the way we provide, how we support our kids and prepare them for careers. That's that's a whole other thing. And I think parents are part of that. So I think increasingly schools will be thinking not just what are we doing with these 4 to 18-year-olds, but also, they're always Alleyns. What happens when they graduated? How can we support them as they kind of navigate moving into workplace and so on? So that, again, that's a very big strategic focus for us this year.
Amazing. We've got so much fodder here for next year's episode, and I think we might have to get a full family affair going. I think it could be great fun. I'm so grateful for you sharing time with us at a really busy point in the year. Fascinating hearing from you, eloquent as always, and so appreciate it. So we wish you well, and thank you so much for all the time today.
Thanks, Henry. Lovely to see you.